Galactus has been cast. Gollum gets the spotlight. Agatha is at it again. And Frank Grillo's DCU role expands. All that and more on this week's Multiverse News. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name is Matthew Carroll, and with me on the panel today, we have the wonderful Haley Hobbs. What's happening, Haley?
Oh, I'm just so glad that Agatha's back and up to her old tricks again.
Mm-hmm. All along. She's here all along. And Jace Scotty St. Clair, what's happening?
Hey, happy to be here. We got a packed week.
We do indeed. And Jace Sisson.
Hey, it's election day, and as you can see by my sticker, I participated because, as Palpatine once said, I love democracy.
Take a bow, Jay.
Love the choice of who to quote there. Good job. Good stuff. All right, this week we have a new 5-star review from Air Matadid. I don't know how to say that one. Sorry, Air Matadid. They say, I didn't know I would enjoy the conversation and news that they cover every week this much, and now it's my favorite podcast. My wife has a very limited bandwidth for talking about things they cover, and it's nice to have an outlet in a way. Hearing you all discuss the media I am interested in. Keep it up. We will, Air Matadid.
Always appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do. Like, that's, I've talked about it many times about Stranded Panda and the podcast stuff, but that's really why we're here. Like, I feel like as you get older, like it's hard to have the conversations with your friends that like you want to about every single like thing in the news or whatever. I feel like I was a kid, I talked about Star Trek with Dave Robertson for like 16 hours a day or whatever. I don't get to do that anymore. Life got in the way. So now we do this, and I'm glad you guys enjoy it. All right. First story tonight. Marvel's upcoming Fantastic Four has found its big, bad, planet-eating villain in the form of British actor Ralph Ineson. While not necessarily a household name, many fans will recognize the character actor from his various appearances from franchises including Game of Thrones and Harry Potter. John Malkovich also joined the cast last week in an undisclosed role. The hotly anticipated return of Marvel's first family seems to really be kicking into high gear with all the recent casting. Do these high-profile additions herald any strong reactions here?
Yeah, first of all, I think I'll just start by saying how nice it is that we finally have official casting. Like, we were speculating for so long about the original, who were going to be the Fantastic Four, and thankfully ever since they got cast, it's just been one addition after the other, and it's all been A-list talent in my opinion. A lot of up-and-comers, but definitely some, solid names, like especially John Malkovich. I'll kind of start with him. And I'll kind of compare him to Paul Walter Hauser. I think both of those guys, like, they really couldn't be different actors in terms of like their presence, but they're both character actors that are kind of known for playing somewhat unsavory characters, I'll say. So I could really see, swapping either one of those in and out as Mole Man, potentially. If not, I think they both have very distinct voices and could, especially thinking about John Malkovich as like the voice of Herbie, just like this disillusioned, just like fed up with it robot butler. I think that could play really nicely. But then you also have to consider the fact that he was cast as Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4 that ever happened. So I have to keep like entertaining that thought in my mind. I really think that there's going to be a potential scenario where we see like a fully established Marvel comic universe in this Fantastic Four film, and that is the universe that we lose, and that's what makes it hurt so bad when we see a universe like that fall by the wayside, either due to an incursion or Galactus himself. And to address Galactus, Ralph Ineson, I do recognize him from Game of Thrones first and foremost. I also recognize him from The Witch. We were talking off air, but he also popped up as the titular Green Knight. So again, I think like thinking about the role that Galactus is going to play, he's a name that I never really considered, but I do think he has a very strong presence. And I think he just, like, depending on how they want to play it, whether this is going to be a completely CG rendered character or if they actually insert his face, I do think he kind of has the look. Like, he's kind of got a jowly, angular kind of face that I think would play nicely with that big purple helmet. So yeah, I like all of these additions across the board.
Yeah, I love the call of John Malkovich as Herbie the robot. I think that would be fantastic. And I think, like, Malkovich is probably not signing up at this point in his career for anything big. Like, I would imagine it's kind of like when we heard about Bill Murray getting cast in Ant-Man, Quantumania. Sure. This kind of reminds me of that, like some kind of probably one-off, probably small role. From what we understand about this movie, the Fantastic Four will be the only characters that carry over, that this is supposed to take place somewhere else, and then eventually those characters end up in the universe that we've established through the MCU. So theoretically, you could kind of insert anyone you wanted to into this movie and then have that sell it to them as a one-off. But I do love him. I keep always think, but the first role I always think about with him is Burn After Reading. He's so funny in that, and he just like loses his mind slowly throughout the course of the movie, and he just plays that like that character arc so well, of just like kind of slowly losing his grasp on reality, and he's just like funny and serious and all at the same time. So I'm excited about that. But seeing the cast come together, this is supposed to start shooting later this summer, so we're really hitting the ground running with Fantastic Four. It's exciting.
Absolutely.
I think that the casting of Ralph Ineson is nice because he's probably the most unknown of all the people we've heard about, and kind of Marvel going back to that is something we've all said we liked. I mean, that's what they did way back in the beginning. We had new Chris Hemsworth. I almost did it totally without trying. New Crimsworth, new Hiddleston, like a lot of people who truly weren't very well known at all. And so I think that's cool. Even if he's just one time in this movie, good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both these are great calls. I think just we talked about it on MCU Cast yesterday, so I don't rehash everything, but like, I'm just excited to know that Galactus is definitely a part of this. And like, we know that it seems like this is leading into a multiversal story, and that like, if Galactus is there, is he going to be a small role? Are they going to defeat Galactus and then the incursion destroys the universe anyway? You know, like what's the thing? Because it seems like Galactus is so big and such big stakes. I really like what you said, Jay Scotty. I have not really heard that speculation, and I like it a lot. I've heard the speculation that, you know, this is a different universe, but I hadn't heard the idea that like this could be a fully formed Marvel universe and they could have a lot of other characters, you know? Yeah. I love that. That's a really fun theory. If you just get like a different Spider-Man and a different Hulk and a different, you know, just get them all.
Yeah, you get like that old school like Iron Man suit from the comics and everything like that, of Tony Stark wearing that version of the armor. Yeah, it could be really cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I love that theory. And it would just make for like, think about just packing all of the fun of having all of the actors from different, all the different edges of the Marvel universe all packed in to fight Galactus. And then it's just, you just squeeze out Fantastic Four, just escapes at the last second and has to leave them all behind before the universe is destroyed. Like, that's a cool idea. I love that. Okay, up next, during an earnings call last week, WB Discovery head honcho David Zaslav revealed a film titled Lord of the Rings: The Hunt for Gollum is actively being developed. The script is in early development, and the studio has attached Gollum himself, Andy Serkis, as the director, with a 2026 release being targeted. Elsewhere in Middle-earth, Amazon treated us to the first trailer for the upcoming second season of The Rings of Power, alongside the announcement that it would be premiering August 29th. It appears it's the dawn of a new age for Tolkien's treasured Middle-earth. Are we up for second breakfast?
Yeah, I'm excited about this, but I also just feel the red flags popping up a little bit, like as I hear these announcements, and it's not necessarily indicative of problems. It's just when I hear about Lord of the Rings, and when I hear about this, we've talked about the idea of rebooting has been thrown around at Warner Brothers, the idea of like expanding, like all these things have come out. But to see that they're announcing, hey, we're going to make this movie, this Hunt for Gollum. They also said that there will be a second Lord of the Rings movie as well. They didn't give any details about it, but they said they're currently fleshing out these two movies that they're going to bring sometime around 2026, and then named the Hunt for Gollum as one. So when I hear that, sort of confirms that we're not rebooting, which I think is a good call, personally. At this point of the distance that we have between the trilogy, doesn't quite feel like enough for a reboot, I would imagine, at this point. Plus, too, we're in a really weird spot with Lord of the Rings. We'll talk about the trailer for Rings of Power in a second, but the Tolkien estate, like, I blame them for this. Like, they sold the TV rights to Amazon and they sold the film rights to Warner Brothers. And so now you've got these two studios, which are in this place of like, do we contradict each other? And it doesn't seem like they are, because the Rings of Power is a prequel, and this Hunt for Gollum, who knows when it's going to be set. But still, you've got these two visions, these two things, two studios, and it divides the fan base automatically because they're following two different things, two different universes, which aren't shared, but they are. Right. And so it's a bizarre situation for this thing to be in. Lord of the Rings should be under one studio. It should be one studio that controls the television, the streaming, and
one studio
the
to
film.
rule them all.
I mean, it was right there. But
I had to take it.
But for me, like, that's the first red flag for me, is that we're making movies, we're making a show, but they're being made by entirely different studios, which is a bizarre situation for such a huge property to be in. I'm also a little concerned about Andy Serkis as director for this Hunt for Gollum movie. Obviously, Andy Serkis reprising the role is a must. It's the role that has defined his career, and he's obviously fantastic in that role. And of course, like, every minute David Zaslav got, he would be like, well, listen, we're asking Peter Jackson about everything. Like, he's an executive producer. Like, we got him on speed dial. Like, every decision we're asking Peter Jackson. But, like, Andy Serkis does not have a great track record as a director. Breathe, not great. Venom 2, not great. There's some stinkers in there. So to me, that's a little bit of a concern. But yeah, I think the excitement is there. It's just, I want to know more details. And then as far as the Rings of Power trailer goes, I thought it was good. August seems a little later than I thought it was going to be, but still, it seems good. I think the Rings of Power was very divisive, for a lot of fans, especially of the property. I think as we're looking at it, this first episode is going to be extremely important, because the main metric with which they measure whether or not we're going to renew shows is the completion rate, and the completion rates are not public. It's like how many people started this and then they finish it. They watched it through the last episode. That's typically not public knowledge. The streamers keep that. But the trades typically get their hands on that information from leaks. And so the Hollywood Reporter reported that only about 37% or 35%, something like that, of people domestically actually finished the Rings of Power, the people who started it. So a lot of people fell off as the season went on. So that show's got a lot of work to do to try to build that confidence back and try to sell something and get people interested again. Overall, like, I mean, I liked that show. I'm in on a second season, but there's a lot of work to do there. It's not necessarily like people will automatically hit play, apparently, on the Rings of Power.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved the Rings of Power. I thought it was good. When you're trying to adapt material that's essentially an encyclopedia for Tolkien's vast, like, literary world that he made, it's going to be challenging, and I thought they did a good job. And the other reason people didn't like it was they don't like diversity, I guess, which is stupid and whatever. So, we're not here for that. But I thought the trailer for it looked great. It got me really excited. We're going to see different aspects of Sauron, which is a big part of his character that wasn't explored in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, and might surprise people when they watch it. The Hunt for Gollum, I'm like, yay, I guess, but how do you make a whole movie out of that? That's my biggest concern with it. Like, I think that Andy Serkis being as involved, being the character for so long and stuff, I think he could direct it okay with guidance from Peter Jackson, but I struggle with this as the plot. And then, so what are you going to add to it? And is that going to make it better, or is it going to make it worse? We don't know.
Peter Jackson also did The Hobbit, so not exactly untouchable. But
True.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's a good point. And to address Courtney O'Brien in the chat, she mentioned that as well. She asked if she heard that Peter Jackson is attached, and that's what we've heard. Is that, Jay, as you said, he's supposedly involved with every step along the way. But what does that really mean?
right.
It's a producer credit. And given that Hobbit trilogy, unfortunately, the Peter Jackson name does not carry the same value as it did once upon a time. But I also agree with your points about Andy Serkis, Jay. I have to preface everything by saying I love Andy Serkis. I love Andy Serkis so much. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful performer.
Oh, yeah.
Between Gollum and Caesar, we just covered the Planet of the Apes movies on Bingers, so to get to relive those performances were so great. But he has yet to impress me with his work behind the camera. People hate on Madam Web, but I still maintain I think Let There Be Carnage is the worst of the Sony movies. So I think it had the cardinal sin of just being bad, but not bad enough to where I could have some enjoyment. It was just bad and bland, which is a horrible combination there. But my mind also goes towards the video games. And for my purposes, I think that is where Lord of the Rings has had a lot of success with telling new stories. I think about the Shadow of Middle-earth and Shadow of War games. They explored a very similar time frame, which I imagine, The Hunt for Gollum as well as The Ring of Power are kind of set in a similar time frame where you actually get to see Sauron when he was this attractive and likable figure of light that was all deception. So I think I like seeing all of that adapted so faithfully. But again, bringing up the Gollum, there was a Gollum game very recently that was awful on every single level, technically, critically, narratively. So it's just are there not people paying attention to what's working and what's not working in different, avenues of entertainment? It just makes me scratch my head sometimes.
Yeah, the Hunt for Gollum thing seems weird, and it seems like my least favorite kind of thing to do in a universe like this, which is just let's pick a character that everyone knows and we have some room to tell a story and just tell it because it's a popular character instead of trying to tell a new story that's set in a new place. I don't I just think that it runs the risk of being solo in a way of just you want to know more about Gollum? No, not really. I feel like we got a lot of Gollum already. More Gollum than, we needed probably.
I'll say TJ Stafford said there's an appendix. It's part of the whole stuff that Tolkien's writings were doing. But my problem with that is that Brian told me last night on Source Page is that time span between Gandalf leaving the ring with Frodo and going to find Gollum is supposed to be 17 years or something, and it's definitely not that in the movie. And so I'm that's where I get a little halting about it.
Yeah.
And to address, TJ Stafford in the chat, I do acknowledge that, those video games did take some liberties with the lore, but I thought it was a novel approach to Celebrimbor, if you will. Got to flex a little bit of knowledge there.
Is Sauron just going to be like Gene Parmesan from Arrested Development now? They're he rips off his mustache and they're like, he got us again, or whatever. He's just always shape-shifted. Oh, it's Sauron again. This guy.
It's kind of what he does.
Funny.
It is.
Yeah, it's funny. Ahead of his animated DC debut in Creature Commandos, Frank Grillo has been announced to have joined Peacemaker for its second season. Returning as the character of Rick Flag Sr. from the animated series, Grillo is in the unique position of not only playing a character in live action and animation, but the character is also the father of the previously seen Rick Flag Jr., played by Joel Kinnaman in both Suicide Squad films. Does the inclusion of this character give us any kind of read about what to expect from DCU's first phase of Gods and Monsters?
Frank Grillo is one of those actors that I feel like I don't get to talk about enough. He's so good at what he does. Is he, leading man material, depending on the property? But more often than not, I would say no. But he's just done such a good job of fitting in and being kind of that unlikable, gruff, but capable military type. So I think back to, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, that one's just celebrating its 10-year anniversary. So a lot of people have been revisiting that one. And again, it's been interesting to go back and listen to him talk about the promise of Crossbones. And while I guess there were bigger plans for that character than actually played out. So I just kind of love how James Gunn is taking the opportunity to kind of scoop him up. He was attached to Creatures Commandos since we first heard about that. But I do start to think about, how is this going to play into things, and like, is this going to be a very long-lived character that's, you know, playing around in the modern day, or are we going to have John Cena's Peacemaker time traveling? And I think that's kind of where I'm starting to lean, because we've already talked about how that first season is removed from the DCU going forward. So we have to have some kind of explanation about how he's there. So again, to kind of compare him to Deadpool, I could kind of see him just being this time hopping, like go back to World War II, actually get celebrated for his jingoistic ways for a little bit and be like, hey, I'm living it up here. This is where I'm supposed to be. And then get yanked back to the future or something like that. Yeah, I mean, there's really not a lot to go off of here, but Frank Grillo is a really great performer. I think he has a likability, humor, and gruffness to him that just will work fantastically in the DCU.
So hear me out here. If it's like, we've been talking about how they're going to need to explain with this new universe, you know, and like why Peacemaker's a part of it. What if like Rick Flag Sr.'s time traveling is the reason that like the entire new DCU exists? That seems like the most logical thing to do for James Gunn. Just teasing. No, I the thing that excites me about this is the tight continuity that they're already putting on display. You know, we've talked about the MCU, how we all are feeling aimless with the MCU, and a lot of that is because they're not bringing back the threads they're laying down. And it's interesting to know that they, with these very early properties, they're going to already have a crossover character. I think that sounds really cool to me. I don't know anything about Rick Flag Sr., but I know there's a lot of emotional weight tied to Rick Flag Jr., and I could see that being a really interesting foil for season 2 of Peacemaker, for him to have to like come to confront some of the things that he's done or whatever.
Yeah, I think we're avoiding spoilers for the 2021 Suicide Squad, but if you know, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Peacemaker, I mean, is in active development right now. I mean, James Gunn is actively shooting Superman, and he's shooting Peacemaker season 2. He's not directing every single episode of Peacemaker season 2, but still, like, I mean, he's having fun. You know, he's doing an animated show. He's bringing in people. This is a James Gunn thing. He brings in people that he likes, and they stick around for a long time. You can see that with the Guardians. You can see that across all of his movies. He brings in the people that he likes, and so it makes for a very cohesive project, though, and it makes for a tight writer's room and production and all of that. So it seems like everybody's having a good time over there, and I would expect this Creature Commandos show to probably come out this year. I mean, I would imagine if Superman's supposed to come out next summer, we know Creature Commandos is supposed to kick off the DCU. It's supposed to be the first property in the DCU. So I've heard that we'll probably get a first look at that. I guess there's like an animation thing coming up in France or something, and that's where we're supposed to get our first look at War of the Rohirrim, and we're supposed to get our first look at Creature Commandos. So that should probably be right around the corner early this summer, and then we'll see about a release date. But yeah, it's pretty exciting for him to get to voice a character and then get to portray him in live action. It's a good opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The highly anticipated Catherine Hahn-led Agatha Harkness Disney Plus series. That is quite a mouthful. Sorry. Of when you describe that. No, I really enjoy it, but I just had to call it out since I nailed it first take. Okay, now I've ruined the whole thing. Which acts as a follow-up to WandaVision, has been no stranger to title changes, previously being titled Agatha House of Harkness, then Agatha Coven of Chaos, and most recently, Agatha Darkhold Diaries. The marketing seems to be leaning into the chaos and confusion, with the new title, The Lying Witch with Great Wardrobe, teased in a deleted post, before eventually announcing the title as Agatha All Along. Additionally, the series will premiere with 2 episodes September 18th, and a teaser is expected to debut this Friday. Are we ready to be enthralled by Senior Scratchy's Mama all over again?
Well, as my cup says, the Scarlet Witch didn't need you to tell her who she is, and neither does Agatha Harkness, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. I think that this was 100% unintentional by Marvel Studios. I don't think they meant for this to have all of these titles, but I think that when they realized it did, they were like, hey, why don't we just make this funny and really get some hype going, because I think this project has been lying. It almost feels dormant for so many years at this point, and it's been very anticipated, like the narrative here says, but it's been like, well, what the heck are we getting? We don't even know. And so I love that they were like, let's do this, let's delete this post, and then let's make a big splash with the little announcement video they made with the graphics. So this is probably my most anticipated Marvel Studios thing this year. I love Catherine Hahn. I've loved her for a long time, and I'm really hoping, we'll see. I can't wait for the teaser on Friday, but I'm hoping that this follows some of the Witches Road comic story from James Robinson in 2015, because I think it's still my all-time favorite comic run, and I'm 100% going to make Brian read all 15 issues with me on source pages.
I actually think this was intentional. I don't know for sure. Maybe the first change wasn't. I don't know. I just heard a lot. When the first change happened, I heard a lot of speculation that this might be some like thing they were doing. And we speculated about it on, I think at one point on the MCU cast, we called this like literally this name. I'm not sure if we said it on cast or before, but we were talking about the idea of it being Agatha, this, and they keep changing the names. And then eventually it could just be Agatha all along. Like that could be the thing. And I don't know if it was on cast or not, though. I can't remember. But this is one of the things we speculated about. I think this was, if it was like making lemonade, they did great making lemonade. But I think it's likely that it was like an all along thing. But I don't know.
If I was on the marketing team, I wouldn't have suggested it initially.
I think someone in the chat just said Agatha, the show of 1,000 names, and I think that would have been a really good one. Like that was Jessica Mai. I think that'd be really good. That would have been a really smart thing to do right before they dropped the actual name. You know, like if they had like really played with it. Like I think if they were trolling us all along, it's really funny. But we'll see. I guess we may never see, actually. I don't know.
I fall more into the camp to where I think this is just a happy accident. Yeah. And it kind of played out as perfectly as it could, because I thought it was a case of diminishing returns. I like the original title the most, House of Harkness. Yeah, the alliteration speaks to me, but I also thought it was kind of like House of Darkness, House of Harkness. But I could just imagine some exec being like, Harkness? What the hell's Harkness? Like, what does that mean? Change that. So I do think they were paying attention to the meta commentary, and I think I'm not sure at what point they started to play into it, but I think Darkhold Diaries was probably the last legitimate change where they were like, okay, this is what it's going to be. People remember the Darkhold from Multiverse of Madness, as well as being name dropped in WandaVision and what have you. But I did love, the Narnia joke, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe definitely spoke to me. But yeah, Agatha all along. I do not think that was the original title, but it's what it should have been all along, right?
Yeah, I will, and I will say, like, speaking to both what you're both saying so far, like, it has been a minute. Like, this has been dormant for a while, and titling this show something that is so like triggering, that song like triggers such a strong memory of that moment when we got that song in WandaVision. I think this is a perfect I think people that may not even remember her name was Agatha, you know what I mean, would go, Agatha all along, WandaVision, that show was great, you know what I mean? Like, I think this is perfect for bringing people who watched WandaVision, who weren't even big MCU people, who just like watched it and thought it was fun, back to this show. I think it's a really, really good call.
Yeah, and WandaVision was 3 years ago too. I mean, and it feels, you feel that, like it feels longer than 3 years actually, since we saw that. And so that's been a while. I mean, you're going to have to convince people to come back, and we know that the MCU shows they do have to convince the audience to come in. People aren't just going to necessarily hit play because it's Marvel Studios. So I think doing something a little bit different. We know there's musical elements to it. We know there's different types of stars being brought in for it, and so I think that's the right call. Like, they're trying to push themselves as we're this kind of different thing. We're off in our own corner. It's late September is when it debuts. So it's going to go into October. Like, that makes all the sense in the world. It'll be good for the season. So yeah, I think they're taking what it is and they're putting it in the right spot and they're marketing it well. And so yeah, I think they're setting it up for a lot of success. But that teaser trailer is going to be really important to get people to really buy in when that time comes.
Yeah, absolutely. But I gotta say, like we talk about, you know, the failings and the drifting of Marvel and whether they've kind of fallen off purpose or whatever, but like this year, from now till the end of the year, we've got 2 properties, right? I don't think we're going to get any more. Just Agatha and Deadpool and Wolverine, if I'm not mistaken. And that is such a stacked year for only having 2 things. Like I don't think they planned it this way. I think this is a result of a lot of shifting. But like that is I feel like if you come off of that year, we'll see if they land the plane on both of those, but they are such exciting properties and have such potential that they could do, if they hit home runs with both of those, it could set up the universe to be kind of back on top for real and not just be sort of like, oh, maybe they're, you know, whatever. I think that it has really, really great potential with those 2 being the properties chosen for 2024.
Yeah, before we move on entirely, I did want to echo your sentiments there, Haley, about being so excited for the teaser, because we haven't talked a lot about some of the actual names attached to this that we know. And, you know, chief among those for me is Aubrey Plaza. Like, I am just so excited I hope she pops up in the teaser so we can get some idea of what kind of character she's going to be playing. But again, all this talk about WandaVision again and how it's been 3 years since WandaVision, I'm kind of wondering, you know, what is the potential for, like, you know, some bigger threads with this only being one of only 2 Marvel properties coming out? Like, are we going to get White Vision coming back? Are we going to get, you know, something moving forward in that avenue?
Yeah.
I hope so. Agatha's one of those characters that can be the catalyst for connecting some of the threads just because of her longevity as a being and her power set. And I would love to see us. That's what everyone's clamoring for, right? Like Matt said at the top, we're ready for the connectivity to begin again. And I didn't mean to make a Taylor Swift reference, but I just did. Sorry, that was the Dayquil talking. I think that this show could do it. We're going to get a lot of characters we've probably seen before, and then we are going to get a lot of new ones. And it is a stacked cast with Kathryn Hahn, with Aubrey Plaza, and with Broadway legend Patti LuPone, which I'm very excited to see.
Of course.
What was the Taylor Swift reference?
Begin Again. It's a song.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it's my brain.
No, it's totally fine.
Brain today.
There's someone else out there.
There's been so
too.
much on my Instagram algorithm.
And Andre does point out that we had Echo this year as well. So yes, not the only.
I was like, there was something else, and we might get What If season 3. We don't know.
Yeah. I just mean like from now forward. Like
I
just got heavy hitters for the rest of 2024. All right. Well, you know, if you like this show, if you'd like to help facilitate the production of this show, help us make it, go to patreon.com/multiverse newscast. That's where you can sign up and be a patron and, like, you know, make this show happen for real. Like, we are a small show, still very much in our first, just starting our second year, and still growing. And we'd love to see more patronage so we can do more and bring you guys even better, higher quality content. So yeah, patreon.com/multiverse newscast would be wonderful. And we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Multiverse News. Well, we're back, and we're going to get into that lightning round in just a second. But first, as we always do, we're going to talk about our Spotify poll. Spotify poll for this week was, what do you think of Marvel's new 3 movies and 2 TV series a year plan? And we had 3% of you said still too many. Wow.
Must not be MCU fans.
Well, yeah, that 3% is shows that, like, you know, this show is full of Marvel fans. But 3% say still too many. 15% say not enough. 36% of you said wait and see, and 46% said perfect. Goldilocks, baby.
I wonder what wait and see means to them, like the quality, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it, and I think it's part of it's just like wait and see what they do with it, like how much connectivity there is, and part of it just like I don't know how I'll feel. Sure.
Let me feel my feelings.
I think I would have been a wait and see because I want more. I always want more. I'm gluttonous for my Marvel, but like also I want them to make good stuff, so I want it to be focused. And I don't know if this is the right balance or not.
It's kind of like, we complain when things get delayed or pushed back, but ultimately I would much rather something get delayed or pushed back if it's going to result in a more high quality product than just rushing something out for the sake of rushing it out.
100%. Yeah.
3 new movies is still a lot. Like, it's still almost one a quarter, so that's a lot.
You got to give time for promotion and stuff too, and I mean that stuff matters. Like the one show into another show like that wasn't great for the shows. I mean, because like not only did you have the Marvel shows doing that, but you had the Star Wars shows too. So it was like we're going from Miss Marvel to She-Hulk to Moon Knight and all this, and then you're going from Obi-Wan to Andor, and it's just like people, I don't know, like just need a second to digest stuff. Like I think we've seen the world where there's a constant flow of content, and I don't know if that's a world where we're totally bought into everything that's put out. I think it makes for a lot of flawed things that are unfinished get put onto the streaming service. So I think this is a good call. The idea of like really hyper focusing on projects instead of just get it out there, get the content out there, like get everything filled up and just keep it rolling, because people burn out on that pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt that exact same way. I think they needed a break between properties, and I think we've gotten that this year, obviously. But I think that I don't know that it's the right balance, because I do think there's a world where like you could have almost what they were doing before, but with like 2 or 3 weeks between properties, and just that little bit of digestion time and a little bit of time to be hungry for the next thing might be enough to make that balance right. I think if you go too far, you run the risk of not being the conversation, not being what people are thinking about for so long that someone else has to take the throne, So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Let's get into our lightning round. That is where I'm going to read a story, and we're going to tackle it with our names. We're going to buzz in by yelling out our name, and someone is going to get to respond to that story, and everyone else has to shut up.
Rude.
It's got real.
Got real. No. Then we all get one rebuttal throughout the entire lightning round, but we often cheat just a little
bit.
We'll see.
First story is NFL tight end and Taylor Swift's boyfriend Travis Kelce secured his first major acting role in Ryan Murphy's FX horror series Grotesquerie. Details about his role remain unclear for now.
Okay, I'll do it. I thought I'd give you guys.
I was just waiting
I'd give you haters a minute.
The haters are not going to hate.
Exactly. I love Travis Kelce as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and he's great. He's got charisma. He's got stage presence. He has all the things it takes to be an actor, and I think he can do this, especially in Ryan Murphy's glossy world that he likes to make with his TV shows. So to combat the argument that Jay brought up before the show about, well, what about the unknowns?
I did not say
if I'm
that.
a celebrity, yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
If I'm a celebrity and Ryan Murphy is coming to me like, do you want to be in my show? I'd say yes too. So
you're confusing me with somebody else. I've never said that.
I'm not, actually.
Yeah.
The sentiment was there. I don't know if those were the exact words.
I paraphrased. And also, I'll just say he can't be worse than Kim Kardashian. So.
Well,
okay.
I don't know.
Jay, do you have a problem?
I'm just saying.
What's your problem, Jay?
I love that this Taylor Swift
You don't know?
love is extending to
No,
Travis
I don't
Kelce.
have a problem.
Okay.
I'm not even using a rebuttal. I'm just talking.
Yeah, you're just making sound. You're just making sounds.
Oh, man.
We'll watch this for Pandavision or whatever when it comes out, and we'll see. We'll just see what happens.
Listen, I'm sorry, the Packers suck. So anyway, moving on.
That's gonna be one of those nights. Okay.
The Office reboot has been greenlit by Peacock with an official synopsis revealing the documentary crew's new subject, a dying historic Midwestern newspaper and its publishers' efforts to revive it with volunteer reporters.
Jay, I am a little hesitant about this because the charm of The Office was it didn't really matter what they sold, right? I mean, they worked in a paper company, but it didn't matter what they sold because that wasn't the point. The point of the show when it was at its height was the office politics, like the drama of the week, the problem that they had to solve, all that type of stuff. And the paper and the business side of it was just part of the joke, and it was on the side. But if you're switching to like a newsroom, like to me, that kind of changes the vibe a little bit because like The Office was relatable no matter what you did. I mean, if you worked in almost any job, you could find people at Dunder Mifflin that you could relate to, or like people, coworkers that reminded you of certain people or whatever, and it just worked for pretty much everybody. But like, I don't know if you can do that with a newsroom. Like, it takes a little bit more convincing, I think, to get people to like buy into that because that's a little bit less relatable. So I think that's interesting. I also think that at the end of The Office, for me, is where it really lost me. Like I was in on that show. I watched every episode of that show. I liked it for most of the time that it was on. But at the end, where they really started to like focus on the docu-series of it all, like they started to make like the people making the documentary the main characters almost. Like they were, and they even went as far as to like show the characters from the show getting famous in their world because they were in this documentary, and like this weird relationship between like Pam and one of the cameramen and all this, like, and it just felt like it went way off the rails for me. Like it lost the magic for me. It wasn't funny anymore. It didn't really like it lost its focus. Like its focus was always, you forgot that you were watching a documentary or whatever. That wasn't the point. That was just a backdrop. It was an excuse that you could get them one-on-one on camera and make more jokes. And then when all of a sudden they started acknowledging that, it went weird for me. And so the idea of like, that's the pitch where we've got the documentary crew back. They're going out to the Midwest now, so get on board for that. Like, I don't know. It's just that there's just a lot of unanswered questions there for me for this, and I'm not necessarily sold on it quite yet with all of that.
During their upfront presentation, Disney revealed early looks at Daredevil Born Again and Ironheart, but currently both of these trailers are unavailable to the public. Daredevil is expected to release in March of next year and will be 9 episodes long. Ironheart is expected to be released sometime next year. Matt, really excited to hear that Daredevil's 9 episodes. I was scared of an overcorrection with that. I know they were originally like 22 episodes with Daredevil Born Again, which I always thought was a little bit of overkill, but I was like, who knows? I'm a glutton for Marvel. Like, give it to me. But like, I will eat it. But this the 9 episodes seems like the right fit. I was a little worried they were going to go, well, let's make it prestigious and do 6 like we've been doing with all our other shows. And I think that would be a little too few for the kind of stories at least they have told in previous Daredevil seasons. So I really want that to be good. And I'm just glad to hear an update on Ironheart. I had heard it was fully shot, and then they hadn't heard anything about it being released, and I was like, when is this coming? And I was starting to worry it would get the like Coyote and Acme treatment or the Batgirl treatment or something. I was like, please don't change your plans that much that you get rid of a show that you already shot. Got me a little nervous, but I think it being pushed back as much, even though it's fully shot, is just a result of them wanting to restructure how their release schedule and wanting to slow down. So that I'm okay with, or just give it to me now. Just give it to me now, Marvel. Come on.
You were just saying that it is a stacked year with Deadpool and Agatha, and now you're taking it back.
I said if you're only going to do 2 properties, this is a stacked set of 2 properties. But I want 18 properties this year like normal.
It's an if and or but statement, Jay.
Everything's on the table all the time.
Mm-hmm. Glenn Powell is in early talks to star in the next film from director J.J. Abrams. At the moment, plot details for the project are being kept under wraps.
Scotty, I find this one interesting because this feels like a little bit more of a situation of Glenn Powell scooping J.J. Abrams up a little bit more than it does J.J. Abrams scooping Glenn Powell up. I think Glenn Powell's having his moment right now, and J.J. Abrams is not. I mean, he's still working. We're going to talk about stuff that he's executive producing later on, but I think the last thing I heard about J.J. Abrams is like he was like on social media, like actively asking people to like send him work, send him scripts, something. So yeah, I'll be excited to see what this one shapes out to be.
Tiny butt. He and Glenn Powell produced this Blue Angels documentary that's supposed to come out soon.
Good
and
call.
so
Cool.
they are at least have already done something together. And I like JJ's stuff overall, and I love Glenn Powell, so yay.
Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery are breaking ground in streaming with a bundled offering featuring Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max. A launch date and price point have not been announced. Comcast also announced a similar upcoming bundle that will offer Peacock, Netflix, and Apple TV Plus at a discount price.
Jay, you've heard of cable, but how about the second round of cable? It's like, I mean, we're watching the death of streaming live. I mean, we're just watching it happen, and it's always been known that it would happen because it's an unsustainable business model. You're paying a little bit of money every month for something that costs an extraordinary amount of money to make. And at the beginning, we didn't have ads and that was what was sold to us. And then, of course, we knew that would go away, and it has. And so now ads are everywhere in our content. And, of course, they're going to be part of it because the industry used to live on the television show and the advertisements that generated revenue from television. And then they lived on physical media that you would sell after the thing that you watched was no longer viewable on television or in a theater. And streaming killed both of those things. And so now we live in this world where the money has dried up and we're competing to see who can nail this corner of streaming down because it's gotten too bloated. Like we have all these streaming services. The prices are steadily increasing on them all the time. And the writing on the wall is there. This is going to have to be the move if you want to survive. You're going to have to bundle. You're going to have to make deals. And you're going to have to find a price point that people are comfortable with. I think people will always have Netflix. I think they were first to the game. But like people are starting to cut their Disney Plus and their Apple Plus and their Max and all of that as the prices go up. So yeah, it's a new frontier that we're entering. But we're going to probably see more of this, if not less, over the next few years.
I have another tiny butt. At the end of Parks and Rec, when they're doing the episode in the future, and it's Andy's TV show, and they're like, brought to you by Exxon, Verizon, Chipotle. That's what this is.
I saw a thing today that I guess Electronic Arts, like EA, they're like a video game producer, it was out there that they were looking for ways to put advertisements into their video games.
God.
So like think about that. Like you're playing Call of Duty or whatever, and you look up, there's like an advertisement or something.
Was that new? I feel like that had to have existed by now. Like I just assumed like I haven't even paid attention, but I guess like that content is there. I just assumed like billboards and stuff inside games would have ads already. Has that not been a thing?
Not really. I mean, not like sold space, like for an advertisement. Yeah. Like that's a different thing. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's like, you do something, you throw a touchdown in Madden or something, and then they play a Chili's ad or whatever, or if like,
they mean like actual.
Things, yeah.
I don't know. He didn't elaborate, but I'm thinking about that Burger King ad that's like Whopper, like or whatever, like that ringing in my ears, like in a cutscene or something.
I hate to bow down to our ad overlords, but like I also think that if you did it right in the right kind of video games, it could actually feel more immersive. Like a lot of times you're in like a world, like whatever, you're running around and flash your Spider-Man, and they'll have a sign that says like, Spidey
Roxxon
Cola.
oil, but then it's Exxon oil.
Right,
So
exactly.
It's just product placement within the game.
Just like exactly. Like I totally see like instead of Spidey Cola or whatever, it's just a Pepsi sign, and like it would just feel like you're in the world. I don't know if that would be too bothersome to me if you just add literally. And the way that a lot of those games work with updates and like patches and stuff, they can even change out the billboards regularly on the signs. Yeah. Like hey, an event is happening in your town, and like you're in the game, and like a billboard is up for that. I think that sounds kind of cool in some ways, but also,
I would imagine
terrible.
It will be much more intrusive than that.
Yeah. That's like optional viewing. Like you can tilt your camera away from the billboard in that instance. Like they're gonna put something in your face that you can't look away from.
Or like how you have those cut scenes, or like if you're playing a game and you're swinging. I keep thinking Spider-Man, but there'll be something important happening and like an explosion that's part of the storyline. It doesn't force you to do anything different, but your camera will be forced to look at that as you pass it. Like the cameras, you pass the billboard. It's like, by the way, don't forget to look at this. Yeah,
it's like fun. This level brought to you by
terrible.
the 2 for $20s at Applebee's. Upload a photo of your receipt to get a special outfit for your character.
Oh, there it is.
Oh yeah, that's good. Prime Video's animated Batman series Batman Caped Crusader, executive produced by J.J. Abrams, Matt Reeves, and Bruce Timm, will premiere all 10 episodes on August 1st. The announcement came with character descriptions, first look images, and an official logline.
Scotty, I have to do some additional research. I just looked this up as you were reading it, but I was trying to find out who's voicing Batman in this this animated series, and everything that I'm seeing right now still says Kevin Conroy.
I think this is his last thing.
Okay.
I believe.
Oh, really?
Or it's one of the last things he voiced. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
So that alone is reason enough to be all in on this one.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. I thought we'd already seen everything from him.
No, because it's either this or something else that Mark Hamill is also the Joker in for the last time, and I can't remember if it's this project or if it's a different one.
With Bruce Timm's involvement, it's there's a strong likelihood there.
Yeah.
Peacock has ordered a second season of the Seth MacFarlane created series Ted, which serves as a prequel to the 2 feature films of the same name.
Scotty, I never checked out the TV series because it's on Peacock. I don't have Peacock. I don't plan on paying for Peacock anytime
But
soon.
soon you will.
But I like the movies well enough, and I think there's a time and place for that kind of raunchy comedy. So if I'm in the right headspace for that, it's fun to check out and just have some fun.
Goodness, sinner. Hiroyuki Sanada, star and producer of FX's limited series Shogun, has closed a deal to reprise his role as Lord Yoshi Toranaga for a potential second season. FX is finalizing deals as part of efforts to continue Shogun following its commercial and critical success.
Haley, I feel very, very conflicted about this. They could continue Shogun because it's part of a book series called The Asian Saga by James Clavell, but I loved that this was just a one series thing, and it was so amazingly done. Like I saw a clip today where Hiroyuki was on NPR talking about how they used almost Shakespearean Japanese because it was set in the 1600s, and so they spoke in Japanese of that time frame, which is very cool. Like they put a ton of detail into this, so I'm sure it will be good. I just worry that it'll lose the thing that made this one special.
Jordan Peele's next psychological horror film, Him, is set to release on September 19th, 2025. The film, set in the world of football, stars Marlon Wayans as a legendary quarterback who mentors a rising young athlete played by Tyreek Withers at his isolated compound. Justin Tipping will direct.
Scotty? So I'm clearly not the sports guy, but when I hear this description, it immediately makes me think of a movie from probably about 10 years ago. There was a movie called Foxcatcher with Steve Carell, Channing Tatum, and Mark Ruffalo. And it was based on a true story, and it was about this kind of rich guy that's, he liked to train wrestlers at his compound, at his house, and it resulted in some deaths and stuff like that. So I do think it's interesting how Jordan Peele, he's a producer and he's a director and he carries a certain amount of clout with him, but a lot of times it's always like Jordan Peele's next film, and he's not actually directing that many films. He's producing a lot of stuff, but more power to him for using his clout to get projects off the ground.
Yeah, using himself as a brand basically to push a certain style of film that he wants to see created. It's cool.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Sci-fi legend Sigourney Weaver is in negotiations to appear in the upcoming Star Wars film The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Jay, we haven't heard much about this film since it was first announced. We know that it's going to continue to build out this universe that Dave Filoni has been creating. So Sigourney Weaver is a good name to bring in. I mean, she's been in a lot of huge sci-fi properties, and bringing her into Star Wars only makes sense.
Question, is this the same... This is not the big project movie they're talking about that's going to combine Ahsoka and...
This is Jon Favreau's Mando movie, basically, and then Filoni is doing the big Thrawn, the big Mandoverse movie.
Okay. I don't think I knew this movie was coming. I don't know how I've missed it, but yeah, I didn't realize there was another Mando movie happening. That's wild. Wes Ball's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes brought some much-needed heat to the early summer box office with a domestic debut of $58.5 million and $72.7 million overseas for a global start of $131.2 million.
Scotty. What a wonderful day! Nah, this really does bode well. I mean, we were talking last week about how The Fall Guy didn't really do it, so I think it was really smart on 20th Century's and Disney's part to move this one, because it was originally supposed to open in a couple of weeks against If as well as Furiosa. So I'm happy to see this one do so well. It performed about as expected as tracking was going, maybe ticking on a little bit on the higher side. So knowing that they've got a whole new trilogy planned, as well as potentially a 9-film arc including the previous trilogy, I think this bodes well. Dave
Callahan, best known for writing Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, as well as co-writing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, has been tapped to write the next film entry in Legendary's Godzilla and Kong Monsterverse franchise.
Scotty? Go ahead, Haley. What you got?
No, I don't have anything to say.
Haley, what do you think about Godzilla? Go
ahead. People like that stuff.
People like it.
People like it. Yay. Go.
Scotty,
I think there's some strong character work across both Shang-Chi and across the Spider-Verse. I think Shang-Chi, a lot of people have said it, but it does have a little bit of that third act problem for me, where it gets a little too we were so focused on character. Now we've got a dragon flying around in the sky. So, that thinking about though that kind of lends itself perfectly to Godzilla and Kong. So
yeah,
it kind of sounds like the perfect guy to strike that balance between having some human characters that we actually like and care about, but then ultimately it's about the kaiju. So.
Callahan surveyed the landscape and said, "Where's a movie where a big dragon fight in the third act makes sense?" And he chose this one. FX has released a short teaser for Season 3 of The Bear. The Bear will debut with all 10 episodes at once on June 27th on Hulu.
Jay, I just finished Season 2 of The Bear, and I really grew to like this show a lot. I think it's got a lot going for it. It's really unique, and the characters in it are unique. It's very dramatic, but it's also really funny when it's funny, and I think it works on a lot of different levels. The episodes are short, so if you're hearing about it, you saw the Emmy hype about it, and you're kind of like, man, I kind of want to watch it, but it's 2 seasons in. Each episode's only 20, 25 minutes long, so you can really get through 10 episodes really fast. I mean, I found myself getting through Season 1 and Season 2 pretty quickly. But yeah, I'm excited for this. June is stacked for television. You've got The Boys, you've got House of the Dragon, you've got The Acolyte, you've got The Bear. There's a lot going on in the month of June as far as streaming is concerned across a lot of different platforms. But I'm really excited for this one. I think it's a great show.
Marvel Comics announced that Storm and Dazzler will have their own standalone comic series.
Yes, give it up for the ladies. Marvel's really putting a lot into kind of rebooting the X-Men comics, which I spoke about a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And so Dazzlers is September and Storm is October.
I wonder if there'll be any crossover between the two.
I know that Storm is crossing into the Avengers, the current Avengers, but I don't know about Dazzler.
Amazon has renewed Mr. and Mrs. Smith for a second season, but season 1 stars Donald Glover and Maya Erskine are not expected to return.
Did anybody watch this?
I did.
Okay.
I did, and I loved it. It's really great. And they set up a world that I could absolutely see a season 2 or even every season being a different set of characters. But I love the two characters that Donald Glover and Maya Erskine put forward in the first season, and I would really love to see a continuation of that story. I'm a little shaky on this one because I really would love to see more of this world. I'll watch it. I'll watch a season 2 with or without them, I think. But I would be much more excited to see Donald Glover and Maya Erskine back. But I know they're busy people and may not be down for this, but they definitely set up a world that like just makes sense to have other people in the roles as well. Or like, this isn't a spoiler. Basically, the world of the show is that there are groups of people, a male and a female, that they call the Smiths, and they'll just have a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and they're just different people doing different sort of mercenary activities or whatever. So like Smiths are just a kind of people, so like they could absolutely just do a different couple, and it could be really fun. Nick Cage is set to portray a live-action Spider-Man noir in a series titled Noir for MGM Plus and Amazon. The series was first announced in February 2023, but Cage was not attached until now.
Haley, this is super exciting. I feel like it would have been bad not to cast Nicolas Cage, and maybe they had to woo him to get him to do it, but I think this is so cool because you just know it'll be in black and white, and I just love that so much. But I think it's weird if it's just called Noir. If they don't put Spider-Man in the title, people are going to be confused.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
Scotty with a rebuttal. I agree with you. I'm super excited for the black and white, but I hope they take it a step farther and kind of almost lean into that style of filmmaking that we haven't seen for a while, but I'm thinking of like Sin City, The Spirit from Frank Miller, that Robert Rodriguez kind of style. I think that could be pretty cool.
Yeah. Legendary Indian actress Taboo has joined the cast of Max's prequel series Dune Prophecy in a recurring role.
Haley, almost nothing is known about this, but it's supposed to come out this year. I don't think it's going to.
It's supposed to be like a mega prequel too, like they said.
Yeah, it's all about the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, and like at the beginning of like how it almost started. So they're going way, way back for this thing.
All right. Amazon announced a new live-action Tomb Raider series being developed by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Matt, I really... this is a weird story for me. I really like Phoebe Waller-Bridge a lot, but she just was in the Indiana Jones franchise, and it just feels like she really wants to make that character happen or something, it's weird. It's a weird fit for her, I feel like. I think she could be awesome as Lara Croft. I don't know if she's even planning to play the role, but like
I wouldn't think so.
It was specific that she's not going to star. She's
not going to follow. Sorry, she's just going to be okay.
She's got a right voice for writing that character, though. So if she does that, then that'd be great.
100%. Yeah, I think writing this character could be great, but it just interested me that she just was in the Indiana Jones world, and now she wants to do Tomb Raider because that feels like those characters are very related.
Oh, for sure.
So it's neat that she apparently has a passion for this kind of project. So hopefully, and I really liked her performance in that Indiana Jones movie. She was great, and what she added to it was great. So I'm interested in this for sure. The Boys has officially been renewed for a 5th season at Prime Video. The 4th season will debut next month.
Roadhouse.
What?
Is a Family Guy bit. Roadhouse.
I think. Well, yeah. So we didn't know officially if The Boys was getting a season 5. I mean, we assumed because we know season 4 is coming and Gen V is getting a season 2, and they didn't say that season 4 was the last season, so we just assumed that this was happening. But I think it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, you probably want to you want to build Prime around this property, which people are super invested in, and already has a spinoff, and then another spinoff that's taking place in Spanish-speaking countries that's going to also open up another part of the world. So you've got a lot going on in The Boys. I do wonder, though, like how much gas is left in the tank for this main storyline that we've been building. I'm not going to talk spoilers because I don't know if people are still watching through The Boys, but like the Carl Urban, like Billy Butcher character, and like the Homelander character, like we're getting to a point where that has to resolve somehow. Like those two kind of the storyline has always been built on these two tracks of this escalation between these two characters of like wanting to end each other, right? And so at the point that we're at, it's just we're kind of at that tipping point. Like something has to happen between these two. I don't think you can keep both of these characters on for multiple more seasons just based on what the story's doing without it going off the rails and like not really feeling organic like it has. So I do wonder like what that looks like, because I think you need both of those characters for the show, but ultimately you're not going to be able to keep both of them for a long time. So I do wonder if like 5 or maybe there's another one in the tank, but I can't imagine it going much further than that.
I'll use my rebuttal that I probably have already used. I think that there can be plenty of room in the tank for this show, and even those characters. It's possible you could lose those characters and continue the show, or one or the other. But I also think like the idea of two characters that are just so opposed to each other. Batman and the Joker have told 1,000 stories. It's absolutely possible. Superman and Lex Luthor, and this is that relationship, but just turned on its head. And I. Just sitting here thinking about while you were saying that, I was like, I don't know if I feel that way. And I was just trying to think of how they could make this something interesting for those two characters to do that's different. What if you went like extraterrestrial with it, and like you brought in an actual threat to the planet that suddenly you actually need the heroes, you know what I mean? Or the villains of the story, suddenly you need the power they have. And then it's like, what do? Do you still hate them? Do you still destroy them? Like there's all kinds of ways to push this in different directions and do new stories. And I just, I don't know. I think there could still be, obviously it could get old, but there could be great ways to do it. But I do think that you're right. It's at a fever pitch, and something has to change. But like, I think sometimes when people hate so much, they end up being so consumed by their hate that they could. So it's totally, you could see reversals here, and the show loves to subvert expectations, and I don't know. I really like that show.
I just think about like the shows that stand as the test of time as being the greatest shows is that they knew when to quit. Like I always think of Breaking Bad as a great example. Like Breaking Bad knew when to quit. Like it knew when to wrap up its story, and that's why it's so good. And to me, I think The Boys can do that. Like it has the power to wrap up at the right time and like tell the story that it's trying to tell. And then just if it wants to keep going, it can rely on its spinoffs or whatever. But like I don't need us to like keep coming back to the table and being like, how do we keep these two guys relevant? Like tell me that story you started. But we'll see. I mean, it's one of their biggest shows, so it's got to keep going in some capacity. Yeah,
and also the show relies on shock factor, and any show that relies on shock factor has diminishing returns to some degree. They can get weirder, but they can't. It's hard to think you could go darker or more violent than they've gone already. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to keep shocking us when you go as hard as they do. A sequel to Amazon's Roadhouse movie starring Jack
Gyllenhaal. It's Jake's brother.
Jake's brother Jack.
Yeah, he's not well known.
Yeah, the movie that stars Jake Gyllenhaal is in early production.
Haley?
Now it's time for my Roadhouse joke.
Oh, do it, Scotty. Go.
No.
This movie was utterly ridiculous. If you watched it, it was purely done just like literally to do it, I think. I don't know why it needs a sequel at all. The end.
A Legally Blonde spinoff is officially in the works at Prime Video and is titled Elle. The series will be a prequel and will focus on Reese Witherspoon's character Elle Woods in high school.
Scotty, I don't really see the appeal for this one. Like, we knew who Elle was before she had her journey in Legally Blonde, and like, why do we want to go back to that version of the character? She was kind of played as like an airhead. So maybe there's an interesting commentary you can have like in retrospect about like where we were at as a society and our indictment on, certain types of people back when that movie came out. Maybe there's something fresh to say now, but just on the surface, I think that's kind of weird to like regress with a character that's like, cherished and beloved for certain qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when you take the angle out of it, like the law stuff and like the schooling part, like all of that was part of it. And so then to just be like, actually, now it's the character that you saw all that, but now they're in high school and you have to like build a high school world around them. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of like it's like a weird shift. It's like, are people going to buy in for that who are fans of the original thing? Like, not necessarily, because you're really changing the background a lot of what's happening. It almost feels like a different thing.
Yeah. I felt that way initially, but I saw Reese's little announcement video today and she seems really hyped about it. The thing about Elle is, even though she's portrayed in the first one kind of as a bimbo, she always has that underlying smarts to her, and so maybe this high school journey is like her having to navigate like her beauty and her appeal as a young woman, but maybe hiding that side of her, kind of just high school sucks kind of stuff. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. And I like the idea, if this is about a character embracing their intelligence and what they have to bring to the table despite being underestimated. I think that could be really powerful for a teenage show for young girls. Like you don't the kind of the ethos of that movie is like about it being underestimated, but it's also about like being who you are, being authentic to yourself, and not letting that stop you from doing what you want to do with your life. So a lot of that, there's a lot of like great themes for high schoolers to learn. That doesn't mean it's going to be a good show, but it could be like a really good, meaningful show to some high schoolers, I think. Okay. That is our stories for this week, you guys. We will be back with more multiverse news next week. But before we shuffle off, let's hear where you guys can be found online. Haley Hobbs.
Yeah, check out source pages. We dropped our review of Dead Boy Detectives and the comics we read for that show. And then my love of Glenn Powell will continue this summer. Jay and Ashley and I are going to do the Twister movies on Bingers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, excited to hear that. And Jay Scotty St. Clair.
Yeah, you can check me out over on Bingers Assemble. We just completed our coverage of the Planet of the Apes movies, at least the recent movies, concluding with the recently released Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So go check that out. And it sounds like, it doesn't sound like, I know we're actively scrambling to make some Mad Max coverage happen as well.
That's
so
right.
Stay tuned for that. And then over on Animation Deliberation, again, we've been, our regularity has not been there. I think we're, considering our frequency and whatnot, but we hear you. We love you. We thank you for all the outreach and support, and there'll be a new episode sooner rather than later.
And Jay Sisson.
Yeah, as Haley mentioned, Bingers coming up. We're going to be talking about Twister and Twisters and all
Awesome.
of the tornado fun. And you can catch me on Mondays at Commute the Podcast, where you can learn 3 interesting things in 20 minutes on your way to work.
Yeah, man, I am so pumped that there's so many cool things going on at Bingers. Bingers Assemble is a show we started 3 years ago, and I said this on MCU Cast this week too, but like it's one of my favorite shows to record because it's like we do a lot of just watching movies and seeing how they connect, and I love it. And so if you enjoy this show, if you enjoy all the other shows in the network and you haven't checked out Bingers Assemble, please do. Great time to do it. Lots of cool stuff. And we just got a backlog of movie series you can scroll through and listen to any of the ones we've done in the past. It's a lot of cool series that we've done. And you can, check it out. But yeah, right now, we got Twisters, we got Apes, we got Mad Max coming in a couple days. It's just going to be flush with content on Bingers Assemble. So go subscribe, hit a like button, give it a 5-star review, help us out. And we'll be back with more Multiverse news next week. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.
Hey, thanks for listening to Multiverse news, or watching it, or whatever you're doing, eyeballs or ear holes, whichever thing. We do this show every week, and we appreciate you listening. StrandedPanda.com is where you can find all of our podcasts. And thank you for listening. Check us out wherever you get podcasts. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the little bell icon, whatever you have on whatever service you're doing. Rate us, like us. We're really thirsty. That's what I'm saying.